Okay, squat is one of those staple exercises in any strength and conditioning program, but the key with the squat, any type of squat, is to teach it correctly, teach it with the right biomechanics so that you don't end up hurting athletes, you don't end up with athletes with sore backs as opposed to stronger legs. So the variation that we use to teach our athletes to squat, so they come into our gym, even if they've squatted in other programs, in other weight rooms, we always start them with this progression, and it's called the freehand front squat. It's the method of teaching a squat that I learned from Mike Boyle, and we kind of added our own little twist, but basically the concept is pretty simple. What you're going to do is you're going to have your athlete first extend their arms out straight, and then I'm going to start teaching the athlete without their shoes, and that just allows us to see what's happening at the ankle joint, see what's happening at the knee joint. And then we're going to actually start our athletes sitting on the box. So I'm going to have Jake go ahead and sit down. So this is going to be our start position, as opposed to starting with them standing upright. We've just found it easier to get them to understand the positioning of the squat. If we have them starting on a box, you want to find a box that allows them to get femur parallel to the ground. Okay, and I know there's different schools of thought in terms of how deep you should squat. We like to start our beginners with a parallel squat. A lot of our lifters, if they have the mobility, the flexibility in the hips, will go below parallel. It's really just dependent on the individual you're working with. But we like to teach it from a parallel position. And so Jake's in the right bottom position of the squat. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a plastic dowel with basically no load, place it across his deltoids, and I'm going to ask Jake to maintain the position of that dowel while he stands up. And what this does, go ahead and stand up and go back down. Good. And essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to teach the athlete, cue the athlete to maintain the position of the dowel, and what that does is it keeps their torso position upright and prevents them from forward flexing the spine. Go ahead and stand up and sit back down. And then while Jake's doing this freehand front squat, as a coach, I'm just watching and assessing, seeing what's happening at the different joints, especially at what's happening at the knee joint. And actually do this for me, Jake. Turn and straddle this corner right here so they can kind of see your knees. And go ahead and sit down. I'm going to place the dowel. And so I'm watching his knee joint, and what happens is, if I have an athlete where the knees are going valgus, they're caving in, that's an indication that they have weak hips, okay? And obviously we all know that that's, can predispose them to a knee injury. And so what we're going to do with the beginner in that situation is we're going to put a knee, or a band around the knees, which Jake will do. And some athletes will complain because it's going to pull their hair out, but it's worth the pain in our opinion. So he's going to put the band around his knees, and then we're just going to cue Jake to flare out against that band, activate his hips as he performs the squat. And so that's our basic, introductory variation of the squat, and it kind of, takes all the guesswork out of, how do you teach a beginner level athlete how to back squat appropriately.